Hi, I'm Matt with Pillar to Post Home Inspectors.
I'm Dan with AdvantaClean.
And we are here to take a look at two photos of mold that we see fairly often in crawl spaces. So the first one, Dan, how would you describe this? What are we looking at?
So this looks like a pretty common problem. We have Penicillium aspergillus. We call it penasp. It tends to grow with a pretty low moisture content, so very common in crawl spaces.
And why is it there? What do we do about it once we find it?
So it's there, again, probably a humidity, maybe a water leak somewhere. We just got a little bit too much moisture in the woodwork down there. What do we do about it? Well, the EPA, IICRC, both of these bodies say that the best thing to do for mold is to remove it. We don't want to just throw some chemicals on it. We want to actually remove it from the property, from the wood. So that's what we're going to do. Then we're going to treat it to prevent further problems.
And this one is much more of a health concern than a structural concern, right?
Yep. So penasp does not eat the wood in the crawl space very fast at all. It's mostly a surface mold. Given some years, it could start to cause some issues, but it is mostly a health problem. The worse that the growth gets, the more spores are coming off of that mold. They're going to move up into the house. The higher the concentrations are, the more likely we're going to have some issues for the occupants.
All right, so let's take a look at the next mold that we find here. This is I tell realtors, this is the white puffy stuff that's pretty bad. What are we looking at?
Okay, so the good thing is, from a health concern, this mold is not going to be an issue for the occupants. The bad news is that this is what is commonly known as dry rot mold. It literally eats cellulose, so it is tearing the wood to pieces, and you can see the pieces of the wood, the cracks and the crevices. As that mold continues to grow, that wood is going to become even more structurally unsound. The picture shows you more than 50% of that wood is already cracked on that one floor joist. It's a very aggressive mold. It can grow up to 15 feet from the water source, and it's eating dry wood. So this is something we want to get out of the crawl space as fast as possible. We don't want to let it do any more damage. Replacing wood is more costly than remediating mold.
So we want to get the pieces of wood that are infested with this out of the house. This is not a scrub, spray, and move on type deal, right?
No, we definitely want to, as the wood is cracked, one, it's structurally unsound. Two, it's infested with that mold. We want to get all of that mold and wood out of that crawl space.
And since we discover this a lot of times in the real estate transaction, we have buyers, we have sellers, we have agents, and we have a lot of stress and anxiety. How do you and your company help the realtors negotiate and navigate this?
Sure. So when we're looking at a crawl space, we're going to break it into two different proposals. The first one's going to be a repair proposal. Generally speaking, the seller is responsible for selling that house in good repair, and there's going to be the definitions of that, but we're looking at repairs. We're going to remediate mold. We're going to replace wood that needs to be replaced. We're going to make sure that certain things meet code. However, the buyer of that house is probably much more interested in preventing this from happening in the future, but that's not generally the seller's responsibility. So then we do a preventative proposal. That way the real estate agents, the buyer and the seller can all look and see pretty much clear, this is what the seller ought to be doing and this is what the buyer ought to be doing. Makes it a much easier conversation.
All right, much more approachable quote that way. So Dan, thanks for walking us through this, and
my pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate it.